Welcome back everyone to another video by me, Max on my Y, and today we're covering the T57 again. However, this time I have actual very good tactical examples of retreating to show you. So this battle, you can skip to it if you don't want to watch the armor section, or you can stick around if you haven't seen it. But this gameplay that I'm about to show you is incredibly valuable if you are trying to take a look at something that skilled players do when in tough situations. Without further ado, let's get into the armor profile. Now, as you can see, the T57 has a very interesting armor profile, seeing as it almost always has a weak point no matter what you do with it. And that's a really good way to describe it, because, for example, if you're only showing your turret on flat ground, you have this kind of U/W shape where you can be penetrated. Now you can make this smaller by using gun depression. As we can see, it almost removes that lower section. However, it doesn't remove these cheeks over here that the T57 has. As for the hull, well, let's take a look. Now, its hull is rounded, so certain angles will become ricochets at certain angles, such as like this. The lower plate will only have this little triangle compared to the full lower plate, which means that if you know what you're doing, you can sort of turn as you're retreating behind cover and bounce shells that way if people are aiming onto the lower plate. However, as is the key with the T57, you can always be penetrated somewhere. And in this case, even though you can angle and make certain plates red, you will always have a weak point on the hull as well, and that is this boat little shape. Well, Max, you're going to tell me, well, I can just use gun depression, and usually that makes the upper plates on vehicles impenetrable. Okay, well, let's take a look. Let's give it the maximum degrees of gun depression that the T57 has. And yeah, look at that. Your boat of a hull can still be penetrated even on the upper plate here. Now, that's not something that you want, so as a general rule, don't show the hull unless you want to be penetrated, even when you're hull down. Well, okay, what about the sides? Well, the sides have a different problem. See, the sides can be penetrated in a bit of an unusual spot. First of all, obviously the track wheel, right? The track wheel, if you shoot it, you're going to penetrate. However, you are also going to be able to penetrate this entire line of wheels, no matter where. Even under a relatively steep angle like this, where you usually wouldn't be doing that, you can still be penetrated, even in these back far reaches. And that is also why I would advise anybody who plays to shoot at these track wheels instead of these turret cheek if you have the opportunity to. And the reason is when the tank is moving back and forth, the turret is wiggling to the left and to the right, which makes it incredibly hard to keep your gun following it and stay aimed in. However, even if the T57 moves forward and backward while side scraping, you still effectively have the same chance of penetration here as you do here. With this little armor section out of the way, let's get into the replay. Now, here I lied a little bit. It's not the tactical cool replay that I wanted to show. That's the next video. Again, in the T57 heavy. I promise this is going to be the last one for the foreseeable future. Now, instead, this is more going to show how brain dead the T57 really is. Because in this replay, I was actually complaining to my friend Plays for Free about how I haven't been able to get any aces lately. And just as I was saying all of this, I had this battle. So I see the Rinoceronte quickly to shoot him. Because he's crossing, I don't activate my shell reload boost. However, here I do to get both my shells into the lower plate of the E100. And I'm just thinking, is it worth pushing to the corner? Now, I see 3 heavy tanks, but they have 1 more and 3 tank destroyers that haven't been spotted yet. So the risk is quite high. And the 60 TP pays for it a little bit by taking that shot from the Kampfpanzer 70. Now, if I'd done that, I would have been shot. And then here, the 60 TP is also the one who's taking the punishment from the tank destroyers. That would have been me if I pushed up alone. So you should always be careful when making pushes. Now, but if I just saw my teammate get deleted, why did I move up? Well, it's because I know that the tank destroyers would have been on reload, and so I took the 60 TP's actions as sacrifice to let me cross and get up to this position, where I could then support my heavy tanks in their fight against the Rinoceronte. And I also have the advantage in fighting this Kampfpanzer, and also the tank destroyers that are sitting in the bush. At least that was my thinking then. I noticed that my teammates haven't been able to clear the Rinoceronte, so I decided to do that for them. And then my options are wait for the Kampfpanzer to show up, or try spotting for my team to get to the tank destroyers. I spot the 183, and the first shell misses completely, but I'm able to aim in the second shell much better than that first, and get it out into it. I am now contemplating my next actions, and this is another thing. I really like the T57 because it allows you to think while you're reloading. You can choose where to go next, and here I decide I will rather go down and support my 116 F3 against this E100, then try to fight the Minotauro. And as the E100 backs up, I decide that a more important target is the Jagdpanzer. However, in hindsight, it would probably be better for me to focus a single opponent. Now, because I know that the Minotauro had shot previously, I moved up without real consequence. By that, I removed the possibility of the E100 or Jag overpoking to shoot me, and I am able to piss off the Minotauro a little bit by dangling my booty in front of him, trying to get him to shoot me. However, here, as he is annoyed, he does try to get both of his shells into me instead of the 116 F3, which is what he probably should have done. Now, with me on 700 hit points and 4,251 damage, I decide that I'm going to poke out here again. I love this position. It allows you to stay relatively hull down while shooting the tank destroyers, and I'm able to clear the 183 out of the game, bringing my total damage up to impressive almost 5,000. And now all I have to do is just wait for the Minotauro to shoot or get distracted, and since he's aiming in on the Jagdpanzer, I'm able to pull off this maneuver. Of course, the Jagdpanzer gets his shot into him, but I'm able to get the clear, bringing me up to 5,500 damage, about. And that's the game. Now, whether or not it showcases anything, I don't know. However, what it does show is, again, just a little bit of how situational awareness is able to change the outcome of games, but more importantly in this game it shows how thinking and deciding what to do during a long reload is something that you want to get used to when playing in something like a T57 or an AMX50B or a Yo. With this out of the way, thank you very much for watching my video. See you later. Bye-bye.